You're live.
Okay. What is the date today? Okay. It's Tuesday, March 28th, 6 o'clock. This at the auditorium. This is Eureka Springs Parks and Recreation Commission regular monthly meeting. May I have roll call, please? Who wants to take roll call? Mark, since you're the designated pretend secretary for the night, can you do roll call?
Lori,
I'm here.
Rod,
I'm here.
Carissa,
Here.
Sam Dudley is here, and Ruth Hager.
All right, and we have a quorum, and Sam, our new Parks Director, is here. This is your first regular meeting?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
All right. We have an agenda. May I have a motion to approve the agenda, please?
Motion to approve, please.
Ms. Rod, do you have a second?
Seconded.
Ms. Carissa, any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes 4-0. The agenda is approved. Public comments. It's the first thing on the list here. Any public comments? I don't have the right glasses. I can't see who's up there. No public comments for tonight. Chairperson's comments. I have no comments tonight other than welcome to Sam, and I think he's going to do a good job. Glad to have you on board. And let us know if we can make your job easier. All right. Okay, Sam, your director's report.
Yeah. First, just like to say thank you to all of you for giving me this opportunity. I've been working at Parks for over 2 years now, and wasn't expecting to move into this role this quickly, but the opportunity came about, and I decided to jump in, and I'm looking forward to working with you guys and making some good things happen. Just a little history. I started doing trail work in 2018 with International Mountain Bicycling Association. Worked there for a couple years. COVID hit, and our program kind of took a little detour, and ended up getting a job working for NWA Trailblazers out at Passion Play in Marble Flats, and helping out a little bit with city trails as well, but mostly out there. And then a year later, I got hired on as a trails coordinator for the Parks and Recreation, and yeah, now I'm here. So I'm a Eureka native, grew up here, and obviously moved away for a little while, but came back. It's a beautiful town, and raising 2 kids here, and trying to build a new life and make the town better for everyone, including my own family. So
Awesome.
thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay. We have any committee reports?
Yeah, I'd do, from the Finance Committee side, I'd
Awesome.
like to just update a couple of little things, not a
Okay.
big deal, but I did go meet and sat down with Nikki for a morning and went through step by step how he takes receipts, how he enters them into QuickBooks, step by step, and I'm very happy to report that it's a very, very good system. It's very clear. It's very check the boxes, audit-wise. They're doing a fantastic job. I think we can do a little bit of better work maybe in our accounts payable about how we pay and how often we pay, because it feels like he has a lot of checks for those of us who've signed checks. It feels like we sign a lot of checks a lot. So I think we can maybe get that maybe a little bit more organized, and maybe twice a month or something like that. But I was very happy he's on top of that. Everything's adding up. What we don't understand is when they use Square versus the, and there's a credit cards and there's cash, and then there's
I couldn't figure that out either.
there's both, and then there's the
Flybook, which shows up as
which is all the other reservation stuff. So then there's another thing that, by the way, is for reservations in the future, And so there's so many little things to that, because it's not all coming through one place and one system. So there's a very good system in place that tracks all of it. Everything's checked off, everything's balanced, and so Nikki, if you're listening, great job. I think they're doing a fantastic job down there with that.
Good. Glad to hear that. Okay, any other committees? Anything going on with the Carissa? No?
Long-range planning, so we're going to have a meeting at Lake Leatherwood, not this Friday, but the Friday next, to, again, look at the proposal for the ball fields. We're trying to come up, we're using it as a case study to come up with a process to define how proposals are evaluated. And after discussion and a little bit of confusion, we've got some very clear zones outlined in the NERP that are sort of environmental zones, Raypian, fields, et cetera. But we need to overlay on top of that, kind of, I like to call them commercial zones. So if it's heavy footprint, like around the Lake Leatherwood, where the bait shop is and where the parking lot is, that wouldn't require as rigorous a review of things like, native plants or, so that would be a much lighter touch, whereas there will be other areas that are absolutely no-go in that we would never consider development in this area. It's a red zone, don't touch it. And then there will be other areas that have a little bit of a footprint, but they would need a more rigorous environmental impact study before we would consider going forward. So we've got to sort of overlay that aspect on top of the NERP so that we have that other lens. Because we don't want every single proposal to go through as rigorous a review.
Right.
So we've got, Tara will be coming, Juanita, Sam, myself, and possibly Steve, just because he has a
Okay,
lot
yeah.
of the NERP knowledge.
Yeah.
Yeah. So hopefully, I'd like to be in a position within the next few weeks to say, this is the process, so that we can start presenting it for review, comment, et cetera, and start to poke holes in terms of, okay, if this is the process, what works, what doesn't. And because that's going to be a big part of the long-range plan is really going to be outlining, here's some ideas for the future, but here's a process of how every idea gets evaluated and approved, so that anything that comes to the commission will have gone through approval process first.
I like
So,
that. And I know that the ball field project has gone through multiple layers of people talking about it, making plans, Tara and her group looking
Yeah.
at it. But we didn't have a process in place, so this is really great to use it as a
a case study.
case study to
Yeah.
create the process. I love that.
Yeah.
That's great. Anything else we need to know about long-range planning in the
Yep,
meeting?
That's it.
Okay. Okay. Glasses on here. That's all the committee reports, right? Anybody else? No? Okay. Old business is next. Terracing of Crescent Spring Wall. We've talked about this. We talked about what Steve and Dickey explained to us a while back of the wall that Stacy's built, and then there's a space behind it, and the wall, and the terracing he suggested. You remember we all talked about this? Okay. I know we talked about, do we want to pay for this? Is there money to pay for it? There isn't money to pay for this. Sam, do you have anything to add to what I'm saying here, or you want me to just kind of keep bringing it up here? I feel like it's not 100% necessary to do this. If it were preventing a landslide or ruining the wall that we just built, I would say we really need to consider it and talk about financing of it. Just my opinion, we all need to talk about this again, I guess, and make a decision, yes or no, I think is what I'm saying.
I'd like to hear Sam's, now that he's in this position and he's gone down and looked at it and he's talked with Stacy, what are your thoughts on the whole thing?
I think Stacy's ideas are really valid. I mean, he brings up good points. I just, there's another side of the story, and it's the money aspect.
The
And,
money, yeah.
I mean, we're already pulling from reserves
What's-
in this current budget, so it's hard to justify that, but
I forgot what he said would it be to terracing possibly the $15,000 to $20,000 range? Is that what we were talking?
yes, yeah.
Okay.
What's the risk of doing nothing?
Some
It
of
would-
it's not that stable looking.
Right.
It's not, but it could be
Correct.
stabilized. I mean, it doesn't look stable right now because it's not finished, but I mean, it'll
I think that was my question too, because if you drive by now, it's just like, okay, well, you're not going to leave it just like it is, but that's just because they're still working on the wall,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, yeah.
They'll fill that in.
And that's
no
why he
matter what.
stopped, is because he's at a point right now where if he continues at this point, it's sort of like we're passing the threshold of when it becomes easier for him to do this terracing. So he's kind of waiting for us to make a vote whether or not we want to pursue the terrace or not, because if we don't, then he can probably finish up much sooner.
Rod?
I spoke to Stacy myself. I drove over to the
Good.
library and looked at it,
Good.
and dug out behind it, looked inside, and I'm like, I did not know that there was an opening behind the wall that goes down behind the wall and then comes across the street and empties across the street on the other side into Madison's garden, is that
Yeah.
right? Okay. So he explained to me that if we right now allow him to put in drainage before he goes any further, it will help keep the overgrowth from floating down in to where the wall is now, because the wall is low. I mean, to me, I think it's a little low. It should be a little bit higher, personally. And then you fill in with dirt, and maybe it would be okay. But he's already got the plans to put the cap on the top of where it is now, which the wall is about this high, and I believe it should be about this high. Personally,
Could it go
that's
off
just my-
historic stuff, though, what size
Yeah.
it was supposed to
It
be?
I don't know what they
It
would
was
approve
based
or
on what
I think
disapprove.
it was
was,
historically, it was
yeah.
the right size.
But we're talking about something that in the future could be a problem if the overgrowth isn't retained back somehow. So I'm almost in believing that what he's saying makes perfect sense as to what we should agree on, because the drainage is the problem.
Didn't we add in an additional drain there? 'Cause
There
my-
is, where the wall is already finished, there's drain underneath that. But he had to stop where he's at, because if we go up with another terraced wall, then he has to put another drain in underneath where the landscaping would go between the two walls.
Okay,
Does that make sense?
yeah.
So that's why he's waiting on us to make a decision, because if we're not going to allow him to do that, then he needs to just finish what he's doing.
But-
And then we might have future problems later down the road.
But is that drainage only required if we do the additional wall?
I think that's what he tried to explain to me, yes.
Yes.
Yeah, and I've
So
said,
if we don't...
And it would drain into where
Yeah.
that hole is that crosses the
Right.
street. Otherwise, it's
You
just
mean
going
that
to
little
always come from
cave?
ground. The cave, right.
Yeah, but if we don't do the additional wall, this is the sort of not do nothing, but what would we do? Would it be a matter of removing some of that extra burden?
I don't believe there's any money to remove, and that would cause more crumbling and destruction. So, because it is, if you'll go by, it's pretty steep. So, there's nothing stopping it from falling down with heavy, heavy rainfalls, which we get here.
Yeah,
So,
And the library already had a big event. A rock went through the roof of part of their building.
oh, I didn't know that.
It's not that stable there, and that worries me about doing nothing.
Well, I asked him about the stones that have tilted and kind of separated from the natural stone back there. And those are big boulders. They're big enough to sit here in the middle of the room. So he said there's no worry about that coming down into the street. But it's the overgrowth, it's the dirt that's around it that is eroding and coming down. That was the purpose of redoing the wall to start with. And if the historical commission won't allow them to go higher with the wall, that's why you have to back up a little bit, put landscaping, and then go up higher
Right.
with a new wall. If they have approved that wall, I personally think we should do it. And if we're going to do, there's some budget things in here we're going to talk about later that we might be able to rearrange if at all possible, but that's not on the agenda for this right now. So if we're going to do some changes in the future with our budget, we might can pull that money and put it towards this wall. So I would kind of like for y'all to really think about that before you say no.
okay.
I'm
Drive
pretty
by.
inclined, we've spent a lot of money on that wall. And a lot of it was because of a tree that was there, that was not checked into or looked at and just let go
Sure,
forever. And it just,
sure.
my inclination is to let Stacy get completely finished with what he's already contracted to do. don't ignore that that's an issue, and stay on top of it, and then either rebudget for it again, when we know exactly what we want to do, or at some time in the year, if we have funding to do it, then we could go back if that's our priority. But I feel like we have a million priorities,
Yeah.
and I just don't think
And
that's the one.
How does there other ways to address that? Because, I mean, you drive down the road and you see very steep hills with netting on them that are supposed to help with erosion. I just think I don't have enough information
I agree.
yet.
One of our meetings that we had a few months ago, I remember Stephen Dickey showed us, if I recall, it was 3 choices, basically. And it was just information from Stacy. One of the choices being pay the money, do the terracing. Another one was something about the backfill and how much it's going to cost to move dirt, things like that. There were 3 choices, and all of them were varying costs. One of them was very little cost. One was the greatest cost, which was the terracing.
Yeah.
Something is necessary there, we know that. That's a given. I think there's definitely something that has to be done for that, whether it's waiting 6 months to do it, 3 months to do it. I kind of feel like for those reasons, like that Mark said, finish what Stacy's contracted to do, and then think about it. How much more is it going to cost us to make that decision later on? Is it going to be $1,000 more because we do the same thing next year that we could be doing right now?
Or we also have opportunity to compete it, It may not cost so much if we have a competition.
That was one of the
to do it.
questions I had. Can we contact a different stone
Yeah, I
mason
mean, I think,
and ask them?
I just feel like we need more information to do that for sure, right? And he is contracted to do that wall, and I'm about, let's get that wall finished.
I think we should- I think we should
Just
finish
not
it.
keep adding more things to it,
But then not ignore the
but
other
not
problem
ignore the other
But-
part of it.
and address it as
Yeah,
quickly as we can.
your only issue here is that if he does finish the wall and then he backfills with dirt, we'll have to dig the dirt out to put the new drain in before you put the new wall up.
Yeah, and
that's
that-
going to be the cost that's going to be added on top of.
That's assuming that we decide that there should be another wall.
Okay.
Do you know what I mean? Like, there
Yes,
could be another,
yes.
2 or 3 other options that we don't have to, because if we look around at what walls need to be replaced in this city, that even some of our responsibility, would that be our top priority wall?
Yeah.
Probably
I
not.
think that, we defer too many maintenance items for lack of money for years and years and decades. Well, as long as we don't defer this for too long,
Exactly.
And we have something in the interim.
Yeah.
Obviously, it's going to have to be backfilled and leveled off and
yeah.
whatnot.
And
can
we
look at
do
other
realize that we
options.
could be saving money supposedly by,
Yeah.
if Stacy is the only stonemason out here doing this, and his recommendation is terracing, and we have to backfill it now, do terracing 6 months from now, it might cost us another $1,000, whatever it costs to dig up that dirt, I don't know. But I think that that's something, we almost have to do that.
I agree.
Because at this
Agreed.
point, I think that we need to finish the wall. I think we need to be able to bid out the next, as a separate project.
I agree.
Do y'all
Good
have-
point.
Agree with that?
And there may be some things, I don't know, Sam, that the gardeners or something can do. I mean, that you guys may have ability to do some of it. if
Well,
you
like
need
netting
to,
or
but I
something,
don't
like
know.
what Chris has said that, but I don't know what.
Yeah,
I
there's
don't know.
stuff called jute matty. We used it for erosion control with trail work. It's just rope fiber that you can put down and you lay
Yeah.
um,
Some
roots on
temporary
top of it. I mean,
fixes
there's a
or-
lot of vegetation up there above too, so that the root systems do hold back dirt from falling down. But yeah, it's a tricky situation. I agree. I mean, I do think at this point, this time of the year, given tourism's about to spike, go way up. I mean, I think we need to
Open that up.
Clean it
it's-
up,
it's-
get it
yeah.
done.
Finish it.
Yeah.
Well, and there's also things like, well, we're not considering sidewalk, we're going to have to somehow get the sidewalk back in there. And then was it not the gazebo, but the little pavilion, the wooden pavilion area that had to come down and, we had to tear that down and it has to be totally rebuilt because the wood was pretty much rotten.
Does it need to be rebuilt, though?
I mean, that's a
I liked
question for,
it,
I liked it
but
too. I mean,
the
that's a
problem-
question for,
Yeah, my understanding was that I don't know if it was wisteria or what was growing there, but it was invasive. And
It
that's
was
part of the reason
wisteria.
it fell apart.
okay.
So I don't know if we need to replace it, if it's a temporary structure, if we can't plant something that's going to
Yeah.
be
that's a
as growing. I mean, we don't
Yeah,
necessarily need to put
it's
it
an
back.
important, I know people get very sentimental about certain things, and,
Yeah,
Oh, I
there's-
you know,
loved it.
I liked it too.
And
But-
those pocket parks and the Springs parks have,
Yeah.
like, the paint job and all that, you know, there's other entities that have helped out with these, Rotary Club, things like that over the years. So, yeah, you have responsibility, I think, to replace it, to make it look nice again as
Yeah.
quickly as possible.
But that's going to be an additional cost. you
Right.
know, So it's something to
But-
consider.
I think that you should ask Stacy, well, okay, are we in agreement? that we don't have to vote on this as far as I can tell. We've already
No.
voted on, well,
Yeah.
this is nothing new to vote on. If you want to let Stacy know, or we can let him know from the commission, but I think it should come from you, Sam, that we are fine with not doing the terracing,
Get it done.
get it done, and then if we want to do the terracing in a few months, once we've talked about our budget again, we'll put out for bid and we'll let him know.
Okay.
Is that okay? Okay.
Hopefully that
And-
puts our gardener on track for getting plants, and I'm
Yeah.
assuming there'll be flowers,
Yeah,
you know,
because it's
above the
springtime,
wall.
but now we
Yeah.
can get things planted.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then, and the sidewalk thing, there was something Stephen Dickey talked to, and maybe you already know this, and Stacy knows this too. There's rules about replacing old broken limestone sidewalk pieces and all that stuff. He's already talked to someone about that and has some
Okay.
ideas, so
Okay.
Be ready
I'll
to
go
work
get with
around
Stephen.
those. It's already been talked
I remember
about.
we did talk about that about a few weeks ago or a month
I
ago.
think
or
he
so,
had to get
and-
permission or ask someone's permission to put some of those back in place.
Yeah, and the chunks are down there at Lake Leatherwood at a.
Yeah, that's what we, and that's why we saved them, that's right,
So,
because
yeah.
we had to save them to put them back in, that's what it was.
Yeah.
So you already know that. Okay. Okay, what's next? The trail reroute at Harmon Park, that's under old business, but we have not voted on it yet. That's the thing we went and saw at our workshop.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I figured we just, I talked with the mayor, and he said he would get it on the April 10th city council meeting. So, but obviously, it makes sense for us to go ahead and approve it before that. So that way, we're kind of have our things together before that. So that's why I brought that up. And then after that, Forrest and Jack Moyer, I believe, the property owners will sit down and sign the official agreement, the trail easement document, so.
Hey, just for the purposes of
Yeah.
stating it out loud, would you just kind of explain what this means?
Yes, yeah,
Yeah, that's a good idea.
I kind of wrote this description for you guys, not for general public, but yeah, near Harmon Park office, at the roundabout where Ellis Grade turns into Spring Street, we are planning to essentially just rake some leaves, this extent of the trail work, and remove some cedar trees. I've already gone through, and there's not going to be much major landscaping needed to make it, but we're essentially going to keep the trail on that side of Spring Street, the Ellis Grade side of Spring Street, wrap it around until it meets the grotto. And then, you know, from there, it turns into the sidewalk. And a lot of people get lost back there in the Harmon Park office, so.
It'll keep them from
We're
crossing
trying
the
to-
street, too. They'll stay on that side of the street. And just
Yes.
go
Yeah, and
around.
so many people are doing that hike because they want to go see the springs and Grotto Spring, and so I'm like, well, they get lost right there, and then they end up, I call them the zombies, they end up in our
Even the
parking
Parks
lot at
office.
parks,
Yeah.
and they're just like.
Because they come around in the
looking
tree at the
around
trail
like,
ends, and all of a sudden, they're just like, where do I go? You're right.
Yeah.
And then they go across the street, and they go, end up down on the Spring Gardens and all that. Yeah, it's
Yeah,
just a mess.
and this will coincide with new maps and new trail signage, which have already been getting designed, and I don't know if you guys
I saw
posted on
some
30 minutes
images of
ago on
those.
Facebook.
Yeah, I
The
read.
the new
Cool.
brochures are done, so.
And maybe just to clarify that the Crescent Hotel is going to grant an easement.
Yes.
Yes, well, it's Elise Rennick. I'm not sure if it's exactly the Crescent, but she's, you know.
Yeah, Elise
Yeah,
is the
it's-
Crescent,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Okay, so that the public can walk there and everybody can be part of our.
Yeah,
ecosystem.
and it's close enough to the road to where really, I mean, it sort of fits within the public domain anyway, but I
Right.
wanted to just make sure we kept everyone
Perfect.
happy, and, you know, I think there might, I shouldn't say that in a public meeting, but there might be future donations towards trail signs if we keep everyone happy from certain individuals, so,
Of course.
Cool.
yeah.
Of course.
So,
Well, and it is to their benefit, too. The Crescent attracts people who want to walk on trails and want to be able to walk on
Exactly,
there. So
yeah.
they're
They're-
glad
yeah.
to do it to help out, and granting
For
the
sure.
easement is the right thing to do. Elise will be very happy to do it, I'm sure.
Absolutely. Yeah,
It also makes it easier to get over to Harmon and then the Spring Garden Trail without kind of wandering down the middle of the road as
Right.
well.
Right.
So it's a safety
It's a good thing.
improvement
Yes,
significantly.
it's a safety improvement.
So for the motion that we need, are we just approving the reroute of that?
Yeah,
trail?
you guys are approving for me to continue pursuing the trail reroute that we
Okay.
have discussed.
Yeah.
I'm not even sure, does that need a motion, really?
Trail modifications of certain sizes and
New trails. I mean, this will
new
be,
trails. This is basically
essentially, it's a new trail,
It's
so
a
we
new,
need to
it's a new addition
sure
to
it's voted
an
on.
old trail.
It's an unofficial trail currently.
Yes.
Currently, right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
and
So it's making it official,
Yes.
really? Okay.
Yes, it needs to be official. And so those things
And
are,
making it safer.
we do have to vote on those.
Okay.
So what is the name of that actual trail area? Does it connect to, no, it goes to the Grotto Spring, right?
So just so you know, yeah, as far as that loop goes, I'm going to rename, well, I'm not going to rename it, I'm going to continue calling that Harmon Loop, and that reroute will be part of Harmon Loop, and then Spring Garden will be a separate sort of standalone trail that, is an option that connects back into the Harmon Loop, so.
Yeah.
Okay.
Because it is actually on, I'm just looking at the map. It's actually on there, and then it shows that there's, like, you can do the loop along Spring Street back to
Kings-
the Crescent,
yeah,
the
yeah.
library.
And eventually, like,
yeah.
next year, I want to expand on that in-town trail map and include things like the trail
some
above,
great ones.
Harding Spring and
Yeah.
the one above Sweet Spring, but for now, we need to get brochures out before summer, because people
Yes.
are constantly asking for maps. I was like, well, let's get this going, and then,
Get the main
It makes
ones
it
there
a
and then
really
we'll add.
nice
Good.
loop, where previously it wasn't.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, it's really been necessary for a while, but it's more obvious now that vegetation's been cleared in that loop, and it's safer.
yeah.
It's safer for cars and for people now to walk around and keeping people off the road.
oh, and thank you to CAPC.
Thank you to CAPC,
Yeah.
yes,
Thank
for the,
you.
for the
Yes,
map
for the
money.
signs, Right,
Yeah.
for the
Signs.
maps.
Good, yeah.
Very exciting. Okay, so does anyone want to make a motion about approving?
I make a motion that we approve the additional segment of the trail to finish the Harmon Loop.
I'll second
Second.
that.
That's Carissa, that's Lori. Any more discussion? All in favor, say aye.
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 Motion passes 4-0. The Trail Harmon Loop project is approved. Okay. Shuttle operations. It's down here under old business because we've talked about it, and at one point, we asked at a workshop that Sam and the director's office give us a wish list, if you want to call it that, of
Yeah, I just I think one of y'all's comments at the last workshop was like, especially, I think Mark was the one who mentioned that no one has just come to you guys and said, this is what we want to do. Like, it's always been sort of vague, like, we could do this, could do that, kind of floating around ideas, and I think it needed someone, I'm not bragging, but I've been the Trails coordinator for 2 years, and so I've seen how the operation works and how we could make it better, and so I'm kind of taking the reins on that, and I'm saying, here's a layout of how we would do that. I can go over this if you want, I mean,
Well, we know there's nothing
You can-
votable in this situation. This is just information
yeah,
for
this
us.
is just, this is
And
not like
we can use this as
anything
a.
where-
as-
Thank you for
Yeah,
this,
thank
by
you.
the way.
This is great.
Yeah.
Yes.
What are the next
I
steps, though?
completely understand what we're doing. I understand what you want to do. And I like having the reasons why. This is good information, and I feel way more comfortable with the whole concept
Me too.
by reading this.
Me too.
So thank you for that.
I think you guys should look it over, read it. If you have any questions, let's put it on the workshop for next week, and then we can
The
dig a
next
little
week?
deeper
That sounds
into
like a
it.
good idea. And then we'll be ready to
Yeah.
make some decisions after that, hopefully soon or whatever.
Yeah, yeah.
And help, yeah, no, I love this too. It gives us the background to be able to make decisions eventually about.
I don't know if you guys keep up with the Trails Facebook page, but Nick and Andrew have been out there doing work, and it's a good example of the things they can do to help the trails that would be included in this,
Right.
so.
Good. Okay, yeah, thank you very
Cool.
much.
Well done.
Thank you. So that's our homework. Okay, let's move on to new business. We have to vote on the application for the vacation of property at 75 Center Street.
Where is that?
Yeah, I need more information about this. I don't remember this.
You don't?
Sorry.
It's okay.
Well, it's new business. Did we
It's new.
discuss
I mean,
it?
it was, I saw something about it, but maybe that's.
I mean, I showed it to you, Ruth,
Oh,
a
that's
couple
fine.
times when you came
I
in.
guess it was just
but-
me, that's before the, yeah, you're right,
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
I went down there and looked at it. It's not of any real long-term interest for parks. I mean,
Okay,
we're-
so-
obviously, we're not the only ones that have to sign off on this, but
So this building is owned by Parks?
no.
No.
It's
The-
just a place where they want to build a little
And you
parking
probably,
area,
if you don't
so-
know, should go look up the vacation policies and procedures of how it's done in Eureka Springs. Parks has to vote on it, saying, we might, if, you know, all the old maps here and all the crazy old drawings with this survey and that survey and fence lines going this way.
Yeah.
This happens a lot where someone says, there's a piece this wide on my property that I want to be, you know, part of my property. And so everyone has to sign off on it saying, we won't need this, it's not part of our property, we're okay. And this happens, there's a procedure and a policy. So if you're not familiar, it's actually pretty well laid out now. Years ago, it was pretty wacky. I think it's really organized now, and I like that we all sign off on it.
I don't understand what we're being asked to
We're
sign
being
off
asked to
on.
specifically sign off a piece of property here. If you're not familiar doing this right now, we can wait, I guess,
No,
or we can talk about it later.
but Sign off on what?
It's,
On vacating it and letting either the
We're not.
property,
But it's sort of, that's like kind of a misnomer because we're not really,
right.
we don't own it, so we're not vacating. We're just saying that we don't have any future plans.
As a city
Are
entity.
they talking
Yeah.
about tearing it down?
No, they're
It
just going to
usually,
build a parking
sometimes it's,
area.
I don't remember how big this piece is. Sometimes it's a small piece, sometimes it's a,
So it's not the bit that the building's on? Because there's a building at 75 Center Street.
No.
I
It's
think it's
No.
only the street alley
Ah,
area.
the alley.
Yeah.
Street
Okay.
area.
Yeah.
a lot of the old streets and alleys that are
Okay.
platted on paper, and this, not this one in particular, but sometimes you see ones that were never actually built.
Yeah,
That
we've
were
got
on a-
one
You got
next
one,
to our
okay.
property.
So you see them on a
Yeah.
plat, and if you look, and so therefore, it was at one point considered city property, even if it's in the middle of your property now. At some point, somebody had to, the city had to vacate it to make it your property.
Could-
And this is what this is that procedure.
Could we get a map? I mean, because, you know, where is
yeah, I have no
this?
idea.
I mean,
This is first.
I can see 75 Center Street, is that it? 75 Center Street?
How, I would just love to know how large it is. Although what I'm hearing is that this is not something that you, Sam, see as any real use to us in the future. We
No,
don't
no,
own it.
that's what.
We
Yeah.
we don't have anything to do with it,
Right.
except we are to say, we don't care about this property.
Pretty
Oh, it's
That's
not that
right.
we don't care. it's
Like
just
if,
that
like
we-
if it were next to one of our reservations, or next to one of our trails, or next
Right.
to one of our parks.
I think if we say no, it's sort of, people will come back and say, well,
Why?
okay, you better build a little pocket park over there.
Yeah,
'cause
it's
like,
like-
So, but how big is it? And
But yeah, if we don't have to vote on this tonight, it sounds like it was too
Yeah,
confusing.
yeah, I mean, this-
And I'm sorry, I didn't think about it. We've done so
And
many of these
why
over
do
the years,
they-
but it's
why-
been so long
yeah.
since we did one. I forgot that it's been a long time.
they essentially are just trying to get parking for number 1 German Alley.
Okay.
So it's an alley, unused alley. This is the description here.
Could you send a copy of that to all of us, or?
80 feet of abutting lot 1 and 2. Yeah, I can scan this and
80
send you
feet?
guys.
He'll send it, let him send the description to
80
you,
feet.
and you can physically check
Yes,
it out.
I really wouldn't think about it the way I think you might be thinking about it. It's more like, because we're not the only ones who have to vote on this. It has all the other commissions. And I'm not saying you should or shouldn't, I'm just.
Right.
We have to think about it specifically from a park standpoint. I don't have a dog in this fight, I just,
Just be curious,
Yeah,
again,
yeah,
we're
yeah.
being
Send
I
asked
would-
to
I
do
would
something.
definitely-
Go
To
out and
vote on
look at it.
something.
I
So
will.
recommend
And
looking
Look
at
up the
it.
procedure, the policy, so you'll be familiar with how it goes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And see why we do this. It's just to say, yeah, it's not next to one of our
It
stuff.
makes sense to, it makes sense to me. I think about between my house on Elk Street, when I had a house on Elk Street, and the next house, there's this property in between that actually would have connected Elk and Owen. And at some point, the city said, hey, we don't have a road here anymore. There's no horse and buggies going in between these houses anymore. So we're just going to deed this back to the homeowners, at that time. And so you could go back into the records where they
Yeah.
basically gave it back to the homeowners, and we split that down the middle.
Right.
And it sounds to me, if I'm hearing this correctly, I'm just actually kind of trying to understand it in my own head. Basically, we have this little piece of property that's nobody's used, nobody has any real value to, except probably the homeowners that live right next to it or whatever's there. and they're saying, okay, we would like to have this property.
Yeah.
The city's going to have to say, well, we as a city don't need it. The parks say they don't need it. Preservation doesn't need it.
Yeah, I believe it's us.
CAPC doesn't need it, you know? And so everybody's saying, okay, none of us have any use for this in the future. Let's turn it over.
Yeah, and then that way we can charge them
And we can charge them
property
taxes
tax
for
on
it.
it. Yeah, they paid $200 in
And
property
everyone's happy.
taxes.
So is that really, in essence, what's the story? How that
Yes,
works?
yes,
Okay.
and the
Exactly.
planning commission is also have to
Yeah, the planning commission has.
vote on it, so.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay, so it's, I'm just looking on it. So there's the 75 Center, which is vacant, and German Alley is kind of down the hill, and
Yeah.
there's a space between the two, which if this is correct, there's a small parking area there now anyway, but they just want to have the rights to buy that space, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
So we don't have to vote on this now, but it's just kind of, now that you know the layout, I would recommend just going and looking at it and then just
Yeah.
ask yourself, like, are we ever going to build a park here? Or are we ever going to utilize, we as a Parks Department, not the Planning Commission or anyone else? just-
We just as a park department.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We got enough
I-
parks.
I'm
We don't need to add anymore.
I'm fine to vote on it now. I
I am
just
too.
didn't
I am
understand
too.
what
I
was
don't have
being
any problem
requested, and I didn't understand what
Getting
we were
this
being asked to
tidied
do.
away.
What's that?
I don't have any problem with
Okay.
tidying this away.
Okay.
I don't either, because then we don't have the money to budget for other things. We certainly don't have the money to budget for a new park. So
Exactly.
let's let it go.
Okay, so do you want to make a motion then?
This property does come with a historic dam with handrails that are
Uh-oh.
coming apart. and stuff. I think we'll
I think we're going to have
go ahead
to.
and
We'll have
adopt
another
this
problem,
one.
right.
Yeah, yeah.
I make a motion that we do vacate this property option for us.
Okay, that's Rod,
I'll second.
that's Lori, and any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
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 Motion passes 4-0. The property at 75 Center Street vacation application is approved from a parks point of view. Thank you.
Guess what that means? Here you go, Ruth.
I'll let you pass
yours.
it on to the next entity that's their turn.
Yeah, I believe it's Planning Commission is
Planning's
next, and then
next.
City Council will make the
Yes,
final
it says on
vote.
there, doesn't it? Cool. Yeah. Okay. What's next? Oh, Sal Wilson's Memorial Pavilion.
Where is that? What is that?
New business number 2.
Oh, like, where's the actual pavilion?
Yeah, on,
Yeah.
Does everybody know who Sal Wilson is?
Do not.
He just recently passed away. He was, his
Excited to see
parents,
the opening of
his parents, his dad is Bob Wilson that owns Bubba's.
Yeah.
Owns
That
Bubba's.
drove
Oh,
Bubba's.
okay.
His uncle is Paul that has Jamilio's.
Okay.
Sal is he passed away. He has after a mountain biking accident.
Oh.
And he had these skills with wood, old.
He was
I
a
can't
part of
say-
the Timber Frame Guild.
Thank you, timber framing.
Yeah,
And so he did
yeah.
the restoration of the pavilion in Leatherwood
yeah.
Park years ago. And because of that, they've been asking us if we want to put in some sort of memorial
Yeah. Yep.
plaque or something. I'm not sure exactly what,
Yeah, I mean,
or name it.
sign or plaque, I'm
sign or
not
plaque or
sure. You know,
something.
Dustin Griffith is, a designer, and they were like super good friends. And
Mm-hmm.
he wanted to
Nice.
do this, and he's going to do it for free.
Nice.
I mean, no charge at all to us, and
And he
install
was-
it and everything.
He was involved in doing that actual pavilion?
Yeah, he was,
Yeah.
yeah, he's the
Yes.
one that did it,
Yeah.
definitely.
Sal built the
He
pavilion.
built it.
Yeah,
Nice.
yeah, he
I mean,
redid the whole
sad, but
thing. It
nice.
was rotting and falling apart, and he came
was
in
a
and,
mess.
yeah, he came and redid the whole thing, so.
And he was a parks user. He's from here. He grew up here. He's a parks user and a bike rider all his
Yeah.
life. And
Yeah.
used the trails and walking and things. He's very much a part of Lake Leatherwood Park. It's nice to have this memorial for him.
Yep.
I don't know what we need to be,
I think the vote would be to like officially name the pavilion, the Sal Wilson Memorial Pavilion area.
to name it, and then allow the director and the Parks Department to decide how they want to, if you're not spending any money on it, if you're putting a sign up that fits in with the sign that's already there. I mean,
No.
do we want to reserve the right to approve the look of any sign or lettering or anything?
I don't.
I don't think we need to
I
because
don't think we
it's,
need to do that.
No.
the signage already has to be,
I'd
in-
like Sam to take a look, I'd like him to sign off on it, but as long.
Dustin is
Yeah,
great.
but as long
Yeah, yeah, I mean,
as
he's the one who did all the
somebody takes a look at it, I
trail
don't need
signs
to.
and
Okay,
he
that's how I
did the
think.
ones at Black Bass too, which are beautiful.
Does the historical commission have to step in here and say you can do certain signs but not certain signs, or?
No.
Not on
It's
site.
at Leatherwood,
Okay,
isn't it?
okay.
No, and I think we already have in somewhere in here about our signage is supposed to look like our other signage anyway. You can't just put a
Okay.
polka dot purple sign out there.
What, really?
Yeah, sorry.
Oh, dang.
The ones with the balloons on them?
Yep.
I don't know if this is appropriate, but I told her I'd ask.
Yes, I know that the
And,
family, I'm glad you said that, because the
yeah.
family, we want to know that the family's okay with this too.
Well,
We already
yeah.
know his sister is, and you said you
Yeah,
have
yeah.
something that his sister wrote to you? Would you
Yeah,
like to read
and
it?
she asked me to read it.
Okay,
so-
go ahead and read it to us.
This is from Anna Lutz, which is Sal's sister. Thank you to the Eureka Springs Parks Commission for considering placing a plaque honoring my brother Sal Wilson on the picnic pavilion. Our family deeply appreciates your consideration and is very touched by your kindness. I wanted you to have some background that may not be known. Lake Leatherwood Park has been a source of many of our family memories since the 1970s. Sal's first birthday was in the park in 1976 near the bathhouse. We brought an inflatable swimming pool, and Sal and his toddler friends played for hours. My sister and I would spend hours swimming with him around the diving platform and climbing from the ladder on the water side when we were young. The park became a source of joy for all of us as children and still is as adults. When Sal noticed the picnic pavilion was in need of repair, that's an understatement, he became persistent about seeing it restored. He knew the history of the Civilian Conservation Corps in the park and felt it was important to honor the hard work that the Corps had done. He told me he wanted anyone, to take care of it. He said it didn't matter to him if he was the one to do the job. He just wanted it to be done before it could no longer be repaired. When he did receive the go-ahead, he was so happy it had been approved. My sister Jessica and I watched him and the crew bring in the final roof rafters. That was a beautiful day. We could tell he was proud of the project. When he posted pictures, we could all feel the joy in his heart for a job well done. Here's what he said. Hey Eureka, I just rebuilt the picnic shelter at Lake Leatherwood. I've been trying to get this done for a very long time, I think 12 years. Anyway, it's not perfect, but I'm pretty happy with it. The way I see it is it's your shelter, so you go use it. Thank you to the Parks Commission for honoring my brother's memory and his hard work so that everyone can enjoy it for many years to come.
Aw.
Wonderful.
Thank you. And if I recall, it didn't cost us, he did all that. He didn't charge us.
Out of his own pocket.
Wow.
No, yeah, he got paid for that.
He got paid, but
Still.
no, he got paid for it, but he did some volunteer with it too.
Oh, yeah, he
didn't
came
really
back and-
charge us as much as it
Yeah, it
it
was
was. No
cheaper
way,
than-
no way.
Okay.
Yeah, but he did come back and put copper plating over the parts of the beams that were exposed just to keep them from rotting, and he did that free of charge.
Yeah, he did a lot of things.
Yeah.
A lot of it was done free. It was done out of his heart too. It wasn't just the money that he made doing it. So, and yeah, it was very sweet.
So, yeah, that's a no-brainer.
I think it's totally appropriate.
Okay.
Well, I would be happy and proud to make a motion
Thank you.
to dedicate the pavilion at Leatherwood to Sal Wilson, and according to all the things that are in this statement.
Okay.
I don't know, we need more than that, but I think basically what we're doing is dedicating it to him. So I make a motion to dedicate this to Sal.
Okay.
Seconded.
Ms. Mark and Carissa, in discussion? All in favor, say aye.
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 Motion passes 4-0. Sal
Um,
Wilson Memorial Pavilion. And-
Before we move off the pavilion, just a quick note. I did get approval from the fire department to apply a fire retardant to the shingles and place some metal meshing over the chimney, and then we can reopen the grate and we can actually have fires in there again.
Hey.
Okay.
Look at you getting
The
things
fire
done.
retardant was like,
Watch out, Sam.
it was like $90, and it'll probably take 2 hours to do it. So, I mean,
Good.
it seemed kind of,
Yeah,
When
it's
my
a shame
appropriate.
to not
when
be
my kids
able
were little,
to
we
do
had birthday
fires
parties there, and we had fires in the pavilion then, so.
yeah.
Been
yeah.
a while. That's my
And I
control.
guarantee you those shingles were not fire retardant back then.
No, I'm
but-
sure they weren't. No. No.
What's he trying to say, Rudy?
Well, I think the fact that we had to keep the kids from throwing the SpongeBob piñata in the fire was probably the most important thing. We were worried about that.
Oh,
day.
no.
That was it. That was 1 year. Other years, no, we were okay. That's when they got older, too old for piñatas, that they're trying to burn them afterwards. Okay. What's next? Hiring a part-time trails assistant. Sam, this is going to have to be your,
Yeah. So obviously, we were expecting to have this meeting last week. I'm just letting you all know that I did find a replacement for myself as trails. I mean, no one can fill these boots, but I mean, come on. But Jake Aker's going to come in. He already knows the trail system. He's a good guy. I've worked with him before, and he's, making less than I was making at full time. And he's working part time, so it's actually putting us lower than our budget. So I figured I didn't really. I mean, if you guys want to vote to approve that, that's
I don't
fine,
think
but
we need
We don't need
it
to.
fits
And
within
it-
our budget, so,
He
okay.
sent us copies of the payroll thing and everything, so you can look and see, to prove to yourself that, yeah, there's no reason to change the budget for having him do that, so.
And he's already started, he worked 11 hours in the last time period, so he's not going to be working too much until the weeds start really growing, but, yeah.
Okay. New business number 4, relocation to campsites 5 through 9. Did you get a chance to do the pictures?
Yeah. Carissa doesn't need pictures, she already knows. Carissa was trying to camp down there
I was
last
gonna
weekend,
camp down
and we had to call and let her know that,
Yeah, flooded out.
Yeah.
This is what I would have been camping in.
Oh,
So,
no.
It is a beautiful area, but it is
A flood
definitely a floodplain.
it's a gorgeous area to walk around, not to camp.
Oh, well, there was somebody camping there when we went to look at it, and it looked so idyllic, but it was dry.
Yeah.
So,
We just can't, I mean, obviously, there's a lot of factors for why we can't have those down there. I mean, safety for one. We can't have people camping in a place where they could
Where it could
Flood
have their
away.
tent flooded out and then
Yeah,
they
salty
get stuck in their tent and.
Can't
yeah,
get out.
Nightmare situation. Also environmental, if they have their stuff laid out and the river comes up and the stream takes their stuff into the lake, it's like, that's a huge
Yeah, that'd be
no-brainer, yeah. And then a reservation standpoint, it's, Juanita was pulling her hair out because she had to go through and contact all these people because we saw in the forecast that there's this huge storm coming in. She had to go through, call every single person and try to move them to different campsites, but we were kind of running out of them. So this is,
so where
Yes.
would the proposed campsites, where would they be moved to?
yeah, sorry, go ahead.
I thought you were saying last meeting that you were going to move them further down, correct?
Further down, like into the lake?
No. Further down away at a higher spot.
Higher.
And I remembered you
So-
mentioning something about higher
Yeah,
ground.
so if you guys have been out there recently, I redid the road. It was like the last thing I did as a trails coordinator, was redoing the road to the group campsite and fixing those ruts that were, of course, someone drove through the dirt and made new ruts. Not too far, they didn't get too far, it's pretty muddy. We'll get that fixed. But yeah, essentially, and I really eventually would like to sit down with you guys and think about potentially redoing that whole area, the whole campground, because, like Carissa says, I think there's a lot of more potential income we could be making. Obviously, I don't want to take anything that's
Yes.
like a public facility that people like to use away, but I do think there's a way we can have both, a place where we can have a few more campsites available, but also a place where people can enjoy the
Sure.
the field out there, because it's beautiful. I
The
mean,
field is
that's
underutilized. And again,
Yes,
it's
yeah.
one of those heavy traffic spots. And it's a field, you're not gonna, it's underutilized. It would be good
is.
to add more to there.
Yeah. So along that road up near campsite 20, I always get the 22 and 20 confused.
That's it.
The group campsite's like 22, I think it's way out there in the
Yeah.
field, and then 20 is that weird one that just sits up there, and it's fine, people like it, but that would be where I would propose 5 through 9 going. But if you guys just want to vote that we move 5 to 9 for now, or, and we can talk about exactly where they want to go in the future, I think that's a good idea, especially with spring coming. There's-
I would think it would be better for you and your department to decide where they go,
I agree.
Okay,
but we could definitely approve the fact that you could move them. I
Yes.
think that would make sense.
okay.
work
Because, I mean, if I can get
around.
approval just to move them somewhere, I can start thinking more about exactly where and how we would lay it out, but,
Yeah.
and then I can bring that to another vote, maybe, hopefully next month,
Okay.
next meeting, so.
Do I have a motion to relocate campsites, given permission?
I-
Or, sorry, go
Yeah.
ahead.
So just if you're going to utilize that existing field, Could we get more campsites there?
Well, yeah, and that's what I'm saying. It's like, I don't have like a full-on plan,
Yeah.
so I feel like if I can at least, we don't have to vote on this now, but
Okay.
Yeah. I'd like kind of almost, rather than just moving those, is to look at, okay, there's
Yeah.
an area here that is underutilized. We could easily fit additional campsites there. And then it'd be really nice where those campsites were to maybe have some picnic table. It's a beautiful spot. You understand why people want to camp there, because you're right
Yeah.
there on the, you're looking
You're in the
at it.
Shady
Oh,
Grove.
It's so beautiful. It's so
Yes.
beautiful.
Yeah.
So it'd be nice to have places that people could enjoy
Yeah.
and spend
When it's dry.
yeah.
when it's dry, which it often is, and even after it floods, it's usually not flooded for long. It's a bit mushy, but yeah, so.
Yeah, I mean, the springtime coming up, it's a little bit daunting, but I mean, we can just keep an eye out for the weather and kind of keep doing what we've been doing. But I just want to plant that seed in y'all's head that eventually it needs
It needs to be
it needs to
addressed.
go.
Here-
Yeah.
Come up
Okay,
with,
here's a
come back
question.
with a
Here's a
plan.
question that I have for you. For relocation of, if we go ahead and say, hey, we agree that you can relocate campsites 5 through 9.
Yeah.
That way, preparing for spring and summer,
Yep.
you've got some, you can start renting them.
I mean, if you guys
Yes.
approve that,
Yes.
like,
Yes.
I mean,
I guess,
they ain't moving soon. Like, this is a big project. I
Right.
mean, yeah.
And so,
But-
so for me, my thought is, yeah, we would like to see a full plan of what you're going to do with all the campsites. But
Mm-hmm.
for me, if you need to know soon, that yes, we approve that.
Agreed.
And you can get them back on the calendar
Yeah.
to rent, and to, then I'm all about saying, yeah.
yeah, agreed. I just think another action is to look at what additional campsites could
Absolutely.
be
A
added.
Complete plan.
Yeah, replant. We don't necessarily need to move others, but there's a lot of land on that field. I think the long-range plan at one point was to put a stage there, and I
Yeah.
just think,
I'd love to have
That's a
farmers markets
long-range
and
plan.
stuff like that out
I would
there,
love
and
to
just
see
more
a farmers
events
market
and,
out there.
yeah, I
but
think
you
it'd be really
could
cool.
still. You
Yeah.
could- And this is maybe part of it, so,
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, let's, if you want to make a
Yeah.
motion, you'll
I
yes.
would- I would make a motion to allow for the relocation of campsites 5 through 9.
Second.
Mark, that's Rod. Any
Yep.
discussion?
No.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Motion
Aye.
passes 4-0. You have permission, our permission to
Yeah,
move them,
I
we're
mean-
relocate them. And then as far as keeping that on our,
I would
the-
like
the
to
old
present you
business-
guys with like a full plan before I did anything. I mean,
Sure.
but thank you for giving us that permission, but
Let's put that in
Yeah.
our kind of
I-
old business agenda for the next month or two, so we can kind of
Yeah.
update and ask
Yeah.
you about it and see what's going on.
I know it sounds easy, but
It'll be
relocating
it'll be at the
campsites
end
is
of
a
the season.
huge
No, I know,
task.
it'll be a
so-
long-term project.
yeah.
I just don't want to be 3 years now, all of a sudden say, oh, yeah, we were going to do that.
Yeah,
I want
right.
to put it somewhere where we see
Yeah.
it often enough to go, oh, yeah.
Yeah.
So we can just ask you. You can say, no, not yet. Are you kidding? I haven't even touched that. But at least we'll ask. Okay. The next thing we have to talk about are budget modifications. Sam has sent us, or given us, copies of these budget things. Mark, you've seen these, right?
I have seen these, right, Sam?
Is the
I've seen these.
highlighted one the
Or at
proposed
least-
budget?
The idea of these?
Sorry,
Sorry.
the first one is the existing budget, and I highlighted the fields that I've changed,
Okay, yeah.
or that not that I've changed, obviously I haven't changed it, but presented a draft that had changed numbers on them, yeah.
So,
I just changed it, you guys don't need to.
so so the shuttle income will go down
Yes,
significantly, but I thought when we discussed this.
but shuttle expenses will also be dropped, which was
Where?
another line item.
Where
um,
are they?
On the
That's
back
on line,
page.
that's page 2.
Okay.
Which,
But I thought-
we're only budgeted for 18,000. I have no idea how that's, I mean, because when you factor in the driver, the payments, the gas, the maintenance on the shuttles,
Yeah,
like,
there's no
I mean,
way
there's
that was
just,
18,000.
it's going
The
to be
payments
closer
alone
to,
were
I
18,000.
thought we were talking about, we're not expecting a reduction in the number of people. We'll just be getting the income from a different way, and it would be a smaller portion.
Right.
yes, and we'd also be receiving help in terms of, we left,
Yeah.
trail work, and those sorts
But,
of
because the
issues.
15,000 is only the income from the people, from the vendor.
And I changed this with the intention of sort of projecting what would happen if we did get the shuttle contract
Right. But
finished
does
up.
that mean that we wouldn't then get a portion of the sales?
Sales,
So right now, we give them the wristband.
Yeah.
And we get if we sell the wristband, we get 100% of the profit. If they sell the wristband, they gave us a portion of the profit.
so yeah, you're still talking about like the mixed system that we haven't really utilized since the beginning of the year. Last year, we used a mixed system where, we had a city shuttle and a private shuttle. Slaughter Trail Guides was the private vendor. Everyone had to wear a wristband, whether they rode with the city or Slaughter, but yes, we'd get $5 a head.
But
Per
that
customer.
would then be added on top of the 15,000 in the new model?
No,
Or is
with the new model, I would like to
only-
get rid of wristbands and just do a flat-based fee, and then look at it after a year and kind of be able to look at their profits and losses, their numbers, and then we can have a better decision. I would imagine that number will go up as far as our share of what they're
The
going
next-
to
So
pay
we're
us.
doing a
But the first year, I would
profit-
say-
We're doing a percentage of their profit.
Not for the first year. First year, we would probably just say, hey, like, this is our flat fee. We don't want to run them out of business and make it so steep that they can't survive. But the following year, they would be required to hand us their financial statements and let us know how much they made.
And then we would get a
And then we can kind of go
percentage.
through and say like, well, let's adjust it to this amount.
So it wouldn't be a percentage of the profits, it would be a discussion about adjusting.
Yes. I mean, it could be either way. I mean, it's just kind of harder to, with percentages. I like the idea of a flat rate just because it's like, they know what to
Yeah, but
pay.
it's just gone
and-
down significantly from what we got last year. I'd like flat rates too, but not when it's not a massive,
Well, once
but when
again,
it's a
I mean,
drop.
the shuttle income is,
Way
you also have to think about the
inflated.
expenses
Huh?
dropping too.
But the expenses were just 18,000.
That's what I'm saying. I don't know where that number came from. There's
Yeah.
no way that could include
That's
employees.
That's
and-
the loan payment.
But we're
That's
not
a loan
talking
payment
about
alone.
getting.
That's just a loan payment. That doesn't include any other shuttle expense.
Yeah, it does,
Yeah.
Just by
not
the
the
amount.
shuttle driver, the gas and the wear and tear.
I've taken those,
Is the shuttle driver come out?
Yeah, if you,
yeah, we don't.
yeah, the shuttle driver will come out completely now.
Okay.
Yeah, we don't pay for the shuttle driver.
And so will the payments, because we will sell them and pay off the loans, right?
Mhm. Well, I mean, yes. I
That's
mean,
our goal.
We're not,
That's our goal.
none of this has been approved. I'm
Right.
just-
No,
yeah.
and after we
Okay.
do our homework and read all this, we can understand more of this too and discuss all
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
But for a budget standpoint, the question you were asking us today was, that wasn't one of the ones we were really going to talk about.
Yeah, that was more one to just,
On the agenda, you have 5 things that you want to talk about.
But I want to say one more thing about
Go
the
ahead.
shuttle thing. Because we have to look at it a little more than the income. I think this income was inflated to begin with for the budget. It just was. There's no way we're getting $60,000. But nevertheless, it's a little bit bigger than that. It's about staying in our core of what our parks are supposed to do.
Yeah.
Trying to continually manage having a driver or not having a driver and keeping somebody employed or not employed and just.
I did not clock a lot of overtime hours for the work I did on Saturdays when I was Trails Coordinator, but if it ever rained and we had to cancel the shuttle service, I had to reach out to every Flybook customer, cancel their reservations,
And work all
refund
day
them,
to
let them
do all
know,
that
deal
work.
with some of them would be mad.
And
I'd
we
have
get
to-
rid of all of that expense,
Yeah.
the flybook thing. I mean, there's all of those things that go away that we get to focus on the park and not on getting people up and down the hill.
And
Yeah.
customer guest satisfaction.
And I feel like
Happy
that,
customers.
yes, we're going to make less money on that, but we're going to have less risk, we're going to have less nightmare, and we're definitely going to have to have less management of something that we just are not equipped to manage.
It's a fair point. I guess I was just expecting it to be a little bit more net sum zero.
Yeah,
So we
I
kind
would
of
love to
even
see it.
out. And based on the budget, it's not, but
But
it's a
what I'm
very
hearing
valid
is these
point.
numbers in the budget are
Really
projections.
Yeah, just
Yeah,
estimates.
these are just
Yeah.
sort of
They're-
We haven't
And
had
they-
numbers that are being
we haven't-
floated.
We haven't had very many consistent years of shuttle income and expenses to look
To-
at.
to even know.
They've changed so much, they've done so many
Yeah.
things, we've done different,
Well,
there hasn't
The
been
other
a
thing I
lot.
would say is here we are already through March, January, February, March of this fiscal year, and we have not run a shuttle one. So we definitely or on the downside of that 60 grand to begin with, right?
Okay.
So I feel like that's why I think it seems
Yeah.
like maybe that's a lot, but I don't
It's
think
fair.
it's
I
any
just wanted
close,
to understand
anywhere
it.
close to that.
I wanted to understand
Yeah,
I
of
wasn't
course.
expecting as much of a drop.
The good news is we just survived spring break, and that's usually a really busy time for the
Yeah.
shuttles. And I mean,
And they handle
We
it.
did spring break with
Kat,
him.
yeah,
none of
Nick and
ours,
his
yeah.
team handled it.
Which
with-
means totally happy customers. I didn't
Yeah.
hear anybody complaining, not that I hear everybody in the world, but at the restaurant, talking to spring break customers, where over years I have heard things about shuttles, and I didn't
Yeah.
hear any complaints at all. I didn't.
I mean, Nick is
not
like
one.
a draw in
All the
himself.
bike
I
riders
mean,
I saw,
like
all the
everybody
bike riders
loves
I saw,
Nick.
nothing
I
but good
mean,
things to say about going
Yeah.
out there. I
Well,
didn't hear
yeah.
anybody complain
I think the
about that.
write-up you did was good, really, I've said it already, but I'll say it one more time. The write-up you did on that, I appreciated that because it helped me understand the benefit of us not having to be in that business. I mean,
It felt really good to write it because it's been in my head for 2 years.
So thanks again for that.
Someone listen.
Okay, so, yeah, sorry.
Okay,
Yeah.
so any other shuttle questions before
No,
we go
no,
to?
no,
Okay.
thank you.
So let's look at the other ones that we have listed here under budget modifications. A is road repairs. Now, Sam, I know we've talked about this, but do you want to kind of explain?
Yeah, I mean, it's an enormous chunk of our budget, and it's for something that I just feel like benefits only a select number of park users, because it's simply just the loop around the cabins, and I also feel like there's gravel parking lots everywhere in the park, so like, why are we so worried about making this one road so nice whenever the pull-off to park for the cabin is gravel? And I'm like, it just, $70,000 could go towards a lot of things that would benefit pretty much all the park users.
Doesn't it come from
so-
up to it comes all the way up to, it's not just the loop, right? Yeah. Wasn't that original road repair quote
Further
for-
along,
I forget where, I can't remember from the map, where the little. know
I
physically where it's
still
supposed
like,
to start.
regardless of like what it's covering, I just feel like to spend
Okay.
$70,000 on a road that's not that offensive to me. I mean, it's not great, but it's like, it's Leatherwood. I mean, this is a park, like, we're, I mean,
you
you see
remember
where
when
you
you
have to
were-
drive to get down the meadow. I mean, you have to
Remember when
like
you were
cross a
really little?
creek, so it's like, I
And you're
just
worried
don't.
about a little bit of,
Yeah.
yeah. I
So a
agree.
couple of examples, Lori's giving me the look here. You know,
I'm just watching.
no, it's all good. I think I've gotten a lot of contact about the mulch in the playground. I mean, that's just a disaster. It's terrible. I mean, it rains, it's muddy, and so that needs to be totally redone.
So more of a priority than, say, the road. The road repairs haven't
Yes,
caused as
yes,
many
yes, yes.
problems with people, okay?
And there's ways we can actually help the road out for much cheaper. The big problem is gravel getting into the road, and then people drive over the gravel on top of the asphalt, and it kind of breaks up the asphalt. I think for $1,500 to $2,000, we could hire someone to come and mitigate drainage aspects to prevent water from just going straight down the road and bringing all the gravel with it. Mark knows all about gravel coming out onto the road at his
My
house.
street.
There's just some really obvious things if you work out there and you're standing out there when it's raining and you can just see the water and you're like, okay, well, obviously this needs to go this way and change this up a little bit and kind of touch up the sides of the roads to kind of keep it from going straight
So
down
you
the
think we
center.
could patch some of it that's there?
Yeah, the only
Fix the
issue
gravel
is,
situation so it won't get any worse?
yeah.
And buy some time until someday we might have
Yeah,
to do
then
more?
eventually one day if we get a grant or something or, you know,
We would keep our own
something
grant. Because
that's
that road was
easier to-
originally a grant from
I
Game
was
and
going to say,
Fish.
Grant's got to be the way to go.
That was the original road. That
Okay.
Game and Fish put that road in because we agreed to do something at the marina. It was either the handicap access to the kayak, to
Oh,
encourage
yeah.
fishing or something
Yeah.
like that. It was something with fishing
Okay.
and ADA things, and that was what allowed us to get this grant for that, if I remember. So
Yeah.
that was a grant in the first place. That was a really expensive road. Before that, it was a gravel, horrible road
The only,
that you couldn't ride a bike on years
yeah.
ago at all.
The only concrete work that I would recommend is across the road from the bait shop. If you go down to the bait shop, there's a concrete canal that they'd poured. We
Right.
need one on the other side.
Right.
Because the gravel's just constantly flushing into the lake, which is obviously not good for the environment. It's not good for safety because people can drive in there and get stuck. It's, there's just a lot of reasons why we would want to, excuse
I
me,
never thought about
do
that. And we don't need more sediment in the lake. We already have problems.
You're right, no more sediment.
Yeah, it's also just costing us money constantly going back there and fixing it and pouring more gravel onto it just to watch it wash out again. I mean, nothing's more frustrating than fixing and just being like, well, next time it rains, bye-bye. So I can go and get, I don't know what the quote would be for the concrete canal. I can, call some companies up if you guys are comfortable with that, but I kind of budgeted about 10 grand for road repairs, for, fixing the drainage on the sides and trying to mitigate water better, and then
And that's on,
probably-
and that's on this little,
On the new one.
the new budget.
yeah.
Right, instead of having the 70,000 you previously had under, it's under, all right, road repairs, okay, 10,000, I see.
And is 10K enough for the engineered mulch for the playground?
Yes, actually, there's a
Okay.
quote from your back of this,
Oh,
and I budgeted 10.
oh, cool.
This might have been a little bit light on how much I asked for. We might need a little bit more. I figured if we can bump it up to whatever 8,000 would be, like whatever amount that would be, and then we could spend the other 2 to have people come in and spread it and pack it, because that's a chore that I don't think we have the
And you-
time
and you
for at
said
this point of the year.
You have to like smush, tamp it down or something, right?
Yeah, you put a little bit on, then you run a plate packer over it. And we have one of those, but if we hired someone, I mean, I guess they could use it if they didn't have one, but I would think they might have one of their own.
Cool.
So,
And did they recommend the quantity based on the square footage?
I took
or-
a Google Maps and just drew the lines around it to get the square footage, and that's what I
Yep.
came up with. But I figured it's probably better to have more than enough, because it's engineered wood fiber. If it's too much, we can always reuse it somewhere else. It's not like
Yeah.
toxic or anything. It's just free of
it's-
splinters.
And it's going to create a depth of what's the?
12 inches.
12 inches is the
Which is
preferred
what they
depth of-
recommend, yeah.
Cool.
So,
Awesome.
That's the standard.
So-
so yeah, I budgeted 10 just for the mulch and the spreading.
And no wood chipper?
We don't need a wood chipper. I talked to Simon from Public Works, and I talked to Dwayne. So the reason why it was ever on there in the first place, it's not Scott or Steven's fault. Dwayne was a little more hesitant to let us borrow the wood chipper from Public Works, and then change of direction, change of, mentality. And Simon mentioned to me last time I saw him, he's like, oh yeah, you can borrow it anytime, just not on Wednesday, because that's when they use it. I was like, oh, okay, well, we just drive down there with our dump truck and pick it up and
That's a great.
bring it back, and
It's fabulous.
I just told him, I was like, okay, we'll just
City resources.
fill it up
Love
with diesel, and we'll be, we'll call it fair and square,
Excellent. And the next one, which is the workshop prioritization, where's that?
Yes, that would be under fence around maintenance area, LLCP. If you go to the new budget that I made,
Yep. this is-
oh, I'm sorry, yeah, it's on the first page. This one.
Okay.
I've talked with Ruth and Mark about this individually. I don't know if y'all are aware of this, but I feel weird like saying this, because I'm like, I hope no one's listening who
Yes,
I'm
you
giving them an idea, but so essentially you can go on Amazon, you can buy a set of Kubota excavator keys, and then you could drive down to our boneyard and steal our excavator, and we would not have any way of knowing or anything.
There's
not
a
secure.
security concern.
Yeah, and/or our tractor.
Okay.
We have no fence, we have no locked area that we can keep this stuff in. So to me, I mean, it makes sense. Let's start investing in the workshop. Obviously, I don't think we can afford the workshop totally in full this year, but if we can get the fence around it, I think that's a huge step. Obviously, I'd have to talk with Kyle from HTC just to make sure whatever parameters we need to fit, because, it's kind of in a historic area, but it just makes sense to me, but
Yeah.
And then the sign package is removing the interpretive signs?
Yes?
Just trying to
No,
understand.
yeah, I'm all for more interpretive signage in the future, but I think right now, like, what we need the most is campground signs. Like, you pull in the Leatherwood, you have no idea where to go. We take it for granted because we're from here, we've been there all the time, that, oh, yeah, this is where this is. There's no way of knowing unless you,
It's very confusing.
yeah.
Yeah.
So, and I don't think I included it. I can email you guys
Okay.
the CADs that Dustin came up with, but he estimated about $5,000 for new campground signage. So that would include brand-new signs for the multi-use area, the day-use area, that would point people in the right direction of the campsites and the playground and the visitor center, which is now open, bait shop, pavilion, stuff like that. It would
But
just,
there's nothing in the budget?
no, well, that would go under 560 signs.
Ah, okay, there it is. So
Yeah.
it's still there, it's just moved.
I moved it to a more general category
Okay.
because it's not interpretive. It's,
Right.
Okay.
Yeah. Also, that would be 5,000. I already got us new campground maps that were designed, and then we're having
Saw
someone to
those.
pick them up on Friday, rain day. Go
Okay.
pick them up from the printing company, and we'll have them in the kiosks. So,
Awesome.
yeah.
And one more question. There are 2 cabin restorations listed.
That's what I was going to ask,
Oh.
same thing.
So there's cabin restoration in Fourth
There's
Down.
cabin renovation and cabin restoration, huh?
Yeah.
Oh,
Is
I'm
it the
sorry.
same?
Yes,
Cabin
yes, yes,
one.
yes, 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 yes. I'm sorry. Yeah.
Is it the same or
My
different?
head's been spinning a little bit.
Different?
No, just like in general. This has been kind of a crazy 3 weeks. Yes, so, I mean, part of that reallocation of the wood chipper and the
Okay.
road repair would go towards restoration of cabin 1. It just needs new siding, and
And
it probably needs more than that,
The
but
renovation is a different thing?
cabin renovation just applies to what they already
Got it.
did with painting.
Okay.
And that also included like the bathhouse and the visitor center and stuff, so.
Okay.
Cabin 1 restoration would be different, separate category. It's a huge project. We need to get it re-sided and then painted. It's sort of a eyesore at this point. But I always put 10,000 in just to say, let's get it started, and then, yeah.
Cool.
Okay. I caught that too, and I was like, that was my
Yeah,
my
sorry,
question. I was
that was-
waiting for you. You got it
Sorry.
before me.
Sorry.
No problem.
Always
Thank
lots
you.
of
I'm glad you
questions.
did it.
You guys can
So, yeah, so cabin renovation is general for any
For some
cabin.
reason, it didn't show up on yours.
Cabin 1 restoration is a
And
specific.
we were
thing for
talking about
cabin
doing a
one.
mix of that, so like, this could be one of the signs you see when you first pull in, because it looks more official, and then as you get further down, you can go into.
And I like the
Yeah.
discussion of
Those.
signs. I
We'll
think
have the
So are we
logo,
needing a
Parks
motion
logo on
to
everything.
approve this
Not
new
until we get to
budget?
the end of this, because we're not adding money to the budget. We're just.
I know we're not.
Moving it around, that's all.
Because it would be really hard for him to see and see.
I don't know that we do.
The plastic, because it's
Yeah, when you
basically what this
move things
plastic
from
is,
one
it's
line item to
an
another,
outer
or creating
coating,
a line item, which.
and then one inner coating.
Because they
Yeah, I don't think
did,
we've created a new line item because that would
logos for
create
the-
a new
The library.
number, and I don't think we're doing
Right, we
that.
didn't create new
And
items.
they
So,
they
yeah.
had
Just
like
move
a
money.
cutter.
Hey,
and
we're
it
just
printed out, so if you
agreeing
look
to
at
sort of the
the
movement of
What was
these
the-
line items,
the
which I kind of like the
library,
idea of
they had a little
having a
sign
motion
there,
to say
and they
do
had
that, and
the
then we
whole
have
logo.
It would
another
only
official
be
copy of the
be green
budget.
and
Yes.
white is the only thing.
That's my point.
Yeah, I think
We've got
And
two, so one we need to eliminate.
Yeah,
one
and we need to
accept.
make sure we
Yeah,
have
and trying to,
revision,
like, have a
number, and
consistent
date,
style
and
guide.
supply
Style
that to the city.
guidelines.
For sure.
Yes,
Yeah.
that's a good idea.
Okay, I'm gonna pass it down.
So I would like to make a motion that we accept the new changes to the budget, and we can move forward with what Sam has suggested us to be agreeing on.
I'll second that.
That's Rod, that's Lori. Any discussion? Do you understand the motion begin? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes
Rid of
4-0.
that one.
The 2023 budget revision has been approved for today, and we will get copies of it to the files.
And, yeah, and I
And
highly
to-
recommend that we throw away our other ones, or put them in, and start going by the new ones so that we're checking those
Yeah,
off the
and-
list. Because it's,
You call it
Do
the
you guys need
revised,
to-
it's the revised.
I've got a whole folder of 500 different copies
too.
of them.
Yeah.
Me too.
And this,
Yeah.
and this, at the top, this says revision 1, which is Sam's first revision, so let's just say this is, that's what this says, is revision 1.
I will
And
go into
Sam,
the
I think you-
Dropbox and,
I think you did a great job because the numbers dropped when they were higher in the original budget.
Yeah, and also
So
I
you've done a
included
good
the-
job of trying to maneuver money around to get
Yeah.
it where it needs to be. I appreciate that.
I also included the workforce, the payroll, because, I mean, if you look at the Trails position, it's scheduled for number of hours at 1,800. I mean, I don't think Jake plans on working 1,800 hours, so some of that's a little bit of a misnomer.
Right.
Yeah,
That's not the indication of his
number's
work
high,
ethic, it's just that he
right.
has other things going on. He's not going to work the whole year anyway, so. but-
Our budget number is actually higher than our actual number is going to be, from, correct?
Or what?
The budget in the total is actually higher than our actual is going to be at the end of the year, just based on months we didn't have the thing. We have one full-time position that we actually only use half-time.
Yeah, and that's
You know,
like the,
So there's
you
a
know,
couple of things like that that.
the
is def-
gardener
Yeah,
hasn't been full-time all year round.
right.
The grounds hasn't been full-time. I put that in there because I do plan on, that'll be for the next meeting for you guys to approve, but promoting a couple employees into new positions, so, but that's not for tonight.
Okay. Hey, you
Well
let us
done.
know how you want to rearrange this. Yes, well done. Okay, so I'm going to write old on that one and new on this one. Okay, what's next? Did anybody have any questions about his payroll thing? Look at that, Lori, too?
I did look at it.
Okay. Yes, he'll be shifting and moving around and letting us know what he's doing with, like I said, positions and changing
Yeah,
titles or
Yeah.
whatever, or responsibilities. Okay.
still swimming.
Yeah.
Deep end.
I think
just keep
you're
swimming.
allowed to swim for a little while. It hasn't been a month yet.
Okay, so that's it, isn't it? Except for commissioner comments.
Do we, never mind, oh, wait, sorry. I was thinking about the minutes from last
Oh,
time. Do we have?
shouldn't they always be, they should be next, I don't know.
I think they probably were. We might need to go back and check that, though.
Well, let's do commissioner comments since it is listed, and then we'll do the minutes after that. Thank you. Lori, any commissioner comments?
I'm delighted with what you're getting done, Sam.
Oh, thank you.
Thank
A lot of this stuff was sort of wrapping up projects from my previous position, so it kind of had some stuff to go on, but still was nice to see how fast things can be pushed through if,
It's refreshing.
you got the, yeah.
Oh, and you've had people around you to help and mentor.
Yeah,
and
I got to,
Transition, I mean, I
Sure.
want to say that transition was easier to this directorship than others I've seen in the past, due to some of the things that previous directors and interims had done.
yeah, Stephen's been great, and
They laid the
I will
groundwork.
say
for
Scott
making
did a
this.
lot of work to
Scott did too. They laid.
put the, going through the Dropbox and all this stuff, it's all very well laid out, and it makes it super simple for me to, step in, so.
It's like it makes us feel like we're grown-ups and professional.
Ugh,
The way they
gross.
can just transition to a new.
Gross.
We're all grown up.
Oh, my goodness.
Mark, any comments?
Yeah, I have something I want to say, because in the last couple of city council meetings, I've heard a couple of public comments, and somehow, I don't know how the Parks Commission gets thrown in with everybody else, but one comment was that the commissioners shouldn't be selecting their next commissioners. And I don't know about anybody else, but I've been here over a year now, and I've never been asked my opinion about who the next commissioner is going to be, or been told ahead of time who the next commissioner is going to be. So I just want to announce that that does not happen at the Parks and Recreation Commission. We do not select our next commissioners. We don't vote on it, who we want or who we don't want, and it is not a buddy system. So just wanted to clarify that. And another comment that was made, that we need to get the parks under control. They have $1 million budget. Just to be clear, public, the parks is under control, and we do have a budget, but, and we probably need a $2 million budget.
Oh, yeah.
And we are funded by sales tax. and our own income from lodging and those kinds of things, the city, we are not a budget line item of the city.
Yep.
So bad information out there, if that's what people think. And I think right now, the Parks Department, the employees, the professional employees that you get to see and meet, our websites are looking wonderful. The public outreach is wonderful. We're working on a master plan. We've got lots of good things happening. So I would say we're under control. Thank you.
Bravo, that's what I meant to say. Thank you, Mark, you're right. And it is good to get the information out there when you hear, to correct things that are misinformation.
That are blatantly incorrect.
Blatantly incorrect. I agree. Thank you. Well said. Rod?
I went to the Kite Festival at Turpentine Creek.
Good.
It was my first day out after being in the hospital, and I was really happy to go to the Arkansas Tourism booth, and they have a brand-new 2023 tour guide for the state of Arkansas, and guess what's featured prominently in the Parks Department? Lake Leatherwood.
Yay. Good.
It has got a beautiful write-up. I'm very proud of it. And I was sitting there going, oh my God, Lake Leatherwood is in
Yay,
the
that's
guidebook.
fabulous.
And there are a lot of trails and there's a lot of things they could have chose that the Walton family has put a lot of money into, but ours got a larger picture and a larger story. So go get your tour guide and see it yourself. I'm proud of that.
And they have a great website, too, when you look on all their information.
Yes, they
And-
do.
And recently, there was some, I like to look at the things from, from Travis Napper at Arkansas Tourism. You get the weekly email updates where they talk about different places, and they do try to say things about Eureka and point out things. So I'm glad to hear that they really are doing like.
Yeah, it's a brand-new guide and it's really nice.
Good.
Nice. Nothing to say except just for clarification, it's not a master plan because we don't have the money or resources for that.
Right,
But we will have a
quit calling it
long-range
that.
plan
A
and a
long-range
process for evaluating proposals.
Right. And
I'd love
it's
to
funny
do a
because
master plan.
I reread some emails from 2016 till now, I've reread every email or text that has to do with parks.
My goodness.
Because I had to, so I had to go back and read them all. But it's been interesting going back and looking through my old emails. And some of the things in there where we talked about not calling it a master plan, that got said so many times for so many years. And then we forget and call it a master plan, and we say, oh, we shouldn't call it a master plan. It's just a good reminder. Thank you. It is not. It is it's long-range planning, which is always a part of what we do.
Yeah.
And I love that you're working so hard with the committee, too. That's really good. So, good.
Yeah, we need to.
Thanks, Grissom.
Yeah, we've had a little bit of a hiatus, but we will get started again just with this transition.
Yeah, and the weather's getting nicer too, so better to be outside.
Sam, anything else to say to us before we finish up here?
Oh, one more piece of news that I didn't mention. It's about the lake. I called Arkansas Game and Fish because someone left a comment on our Facebook when we posted about the new campground maps. And they're like, hey, are you guys going to try to fix the issue with all the nasty stuff in the lake? And I was like, well, maybe this is a good time for me to call and investigate. So I actually did call them, and I was calling because I thought we might need to get them to come do this. But the biologist, John, I forget his last name, told me that 2 years ago they actually did put 600 sterile grass carp into the lake, and that it generally takes 2 years for them to really settle in and have a major impact. So I'm like really keeping my fingers crossed that
I've forgotten
the
what you
lake
said.
will look a little bit
What's the plant they're
Will they
eating?
eat the vegetation?
Milfoil?
Yes, they
Milfoil?
kind of
okay.
go through there and
Cool.
rough things up and clean it up, and
Good.
they're really good for.
Do you remember the name of the plant that plant that was overgrown down there past that they were supposed to eat? Is it
Is it?
milfoil? No, that's not it. I can't remember.
It's not curly pondweed, is it? No,
I don't know. But we
Anyway.
should know this. But anyway, they were supposed to eat that, and I kind of forgot about it. I didn't know it took them that long to get
Interesting,
settled
Yeah.
in. And they're sterile, so they won't be making too many carp to take
Yeah.
over the lake. That's good. You won't have invasion of the.
There they are at the single carp bar.
Right.
Hey,
That was
Okay,
fun.
that's good.
that was funny. Okay, we have minutes to approve from our previous regular meeting, such,
But I don't think we got it.
We didn't get anything because
you're right.
our secretary resigned.
Okay,
Let
Well, then we
me,
can't approve them tonight, but we'll look into it.
let me go back and find it. I'll
Okay, thank you, Mark.
do some research and see, because I can just watch the thing and create minutes for that if ever I
Okay.
like.
Thank you. All right.
I gotta-
Any other announcements or things to say? or- Okay. I need a motion to adjourn.
I move to adjourn.
Seconded.
It's Carissa, discussion? In favor, say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes 4-0. We are adjourned. It is 7:25 PM.